Hello again, and thanks for joining us for this Tuesday's edition of Alaska Weather. Up first, we've got heavy rains, soaking 24-hour rainfall amounts slid on up from the southeast coast overnight last night and today, this morning, and into the afternoon. And some pretty good amounts in the last 24 hours have occurred. Valdez, Chisana, Nebezna all picked up about 9/10 of an inch. In fact, still raining in Valdez, and they're over an inch now for a 24-hour amount, and Chisana and Nebezna are both approaching 1 inch. Independence Mine picked up 6/10 of an inch. They got under or near one of those thunderstorms that developed in the Susitna Valley last evening and overnight. And Northway still raining currently there, over half an inch of rain, and Palmer picked up 0.42 of an inch. And moving on to fire danger, that's turned the southern interior from Bristol Bay and the Kuskokwim Delta right up into almost as far north as Eagle, into the low category now, with the precipitation moving in, much cooler temperatures and higher humidities. And you can see all of the southeast coast right on up. Sharp line there along the Alaska Range, and you get into the extreme fire danger. It was still dry, sunny, temperature 75 to 80 at mid-afternoon over the lower mid-Yukon River Valley areas, with breezy conditions over the interior, making for extreme fire danger for grass, very high to extreme. And you can see gusty winds through the Brooks Range, even high fire danger, very high fire dangers there. Gusting 30 to 50 miles an hour through the passes there. And from Point Lay, western Arctic coast, that same sort of pattern also going on there. Dry, a lot cooler though, mid to upper 30s on the western Arctic coast, but those gusty winds, dry conditions making for very high fire danger for grasses. So very easy to get a grass fire going. Otherwise, moving on from there, Tuesday summary, it was dry and breezy, as I mentioned, for the northern and western interior, and then cool with areas of rain, some cases moderate to heavy rains over the southeast interior, but it dried out over the panhandle during the day today, and a few thunderstorms over southwest Alaska, actually a couple of strikes in the Copper River Basin as well, but probably won't be as extensive as what was seen yesterday with the more stable air, cooler air coming in at the lower levels. In the outlook, wetter and cooler weather moving into western Alaska, mainly dry for the eastern interior, with thunder becoming less likely. And there are no watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere around the state for the next day or so. Finally ended the flood advisory for the northern Copper River Basin, Gulkana River there, and around Lake Louise Road, finally subsided, and that's ended earlier today. And moving on, no warnings, nothing but light winds and high pressure out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Only thing, just low clouds and fog, but no storms. Satellite imagery showing that band of moisture that brought the significant rainfall amounts there from just south of Eagle right down to the North Gulf Coast, eastern North Gulf Coast. Rain starting to taper off. Still raining Yakutat and over into Cordova and especially Valdez, but drying out over the Panhandle. Some sunshine today with showers ending even over the northern areas there. Lots of clear skies. You can see Perbelov's carrying clear skies today. Some mid and high level clouds, actually some convection just to their east, drifting west-southwestward there. And the northern Bering Sea, very clear, a lot of clear skies, but low clouds and fog on the north shore of St. Lawrence Island. Back up to the Bering Strait, then you got some more clearing there west of the northwest coast, western Arctic coast, with that strong offshore flow. Again, winds up 25 gusts to 40 miles an hour. Let's see, Point Lay at a gust to 38 miles an hour. Otherwise, along the entire Arctic coast, winds out of the east-northeast, 20 gusting 35, keeping temperatures in the mid-20s to near 30 on the central and eastern Arctic coast today, and with the sunshine into the 30s for the west side. And a lot of low clouds and fog over the Aleutians and southern Bering Sea. Infrared imagery showing the band of clouds that's hung up over the southeast interior there across the Copper River Basin, down across the Kenai Peninsula into Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula there. Just showers over Kodiak State Airport, as last I checked, hadn't picked up any precipitation at all. And pretty scattered shower conditions, although some thunderstorms starting to develop there east of Bethel and into the southwest mountain areas, and showers over south central Alaska with clearing skies, pretty gusty winds in some areas. And then you can see quite vividly that next storm south of the Aleutians, or I'm sorry, south of the Panhandle. Next band pushing rain across the Queen Charlotte, starting to push some moisture into Dixon Entrance. And eventually that will move into the southeast coast. And on the chart today, high pressure at the surface due to the cooler air up along the North Gulf Coast. And again, the moderate amounts of rain into the Copper River Basin and North Gulf Coast areas, but drying out over the Panhandle. Still dry and windy again, winds gusting through the passes of the Brooks Range 30 to 50 miles per hour today, and 15 to 25 mile an hour wind gusts over the northern interior north of the Yukon River. Lighter winds down to the south. Although Copper River Basin, even though the gradient there doesn't support it, Gulkena had a south wind gust to 35 miles an hour and southeast winds gusting to 32 miles an hour at Anchorage out of the southeast today. Otherwise, light winds along the North Gulf Coast of Kodiak Island with the cloud showers and much cooler temperatures, mostly in the 50s to lower 60s. Widespread areas of low clouds and fog, southern Bering Sea today, and that'll continue into tonight with low clouds and fog. Could develop over the Pribilofs. That can kind of just pop into existence from clear skies, can go to dense fog in a matter of minutes out over the Bering Sea this time of the year. But the northern Bering should stay mostly clear in VFR. And that area, low clouds and fog there in the north shore of the Seward Peninsula down to the Bering Strait coastal areas, Diomede Islands, Tin City, Teller, Wales, and those areas tonight. And also for the eastern Arctic coast, could see a few flurries, temperatures in the 20s again. Isolated thunderstorms possible there over the north central interior just south of the Brooks Range, and also over the southwest interior, that weak 1010 millibar low, with moisture and some evening thunderstorms possible along the Alaska Range down into the southwest mountains. Otherwise, precipitation decreasing, starting to taper off over the Copper River Basin. Still can see a few evening showers, Chugach Mountains, Talkeetnas, on up into the White Mountains possibly. And another band of showers sort of develops over the southern southeast coast. And then for tomorrow, that becomes a little more widespread moisture over the Panhandle. And then high pressure at the surface indicating a chilly air mass there up along the North Gulf Coast again. But look for increasing sunshine, kind of a break going partly to mostly sunny for the southern Copper River Basin, Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, into Cook Inlet, with possibility of some mountain thunderstorm activity developing over the Alaska Range and the eastern interior down into northeast Bristol Bay again. Otherwise, the interior, northern areas, not much change. Dry, breezy, and high 60s to mid to upper 70s. And low clouds and fog over the southern Bering Sea mainly, with some pretty good clearing again over the northern Bering Sea. Weak low could bring a little bit of moisture, light fog, drizzle, or rain, Pribilof Islands and the Fox Islands. Otherwise, Thursday, no change out west, and another surge of moisture rolls into southern Alaska again for another round of rain, showers, and thunderstorms from the North Gulf Coast, Copper River Basin, along the Alaska Range, south central Alaska, and Cook Inlet as well on the Kenai Peninsula. And yet another front begins to increase the rain over the southern southeast coast late in the day as it becomes more, showers become more isolated and widely scattered over the northern Panhandle with maybe a few sun breaks. But Arctic front dropping down from the north brings another round of snow into the central and eastern Arctic coast. Temperatures back down into the lower to mid-20s. Lows tonight in the mid-20s, mid to upper 20s for the Arctic coast, North Slope areas. Otherwise, south of the Brooks Range in the 40s, 40 to 45 central interior. A little chillier there, down to 34 for Eagle. And in the 40s, south central Alaska, lower 40s Copper River Basin, 40s to lower 50s for the Panhandle, near 50 for Kodiak Island. Highs tomorrow, mid to upper 70s over the southwest interior areas, and cooler in the in the upper 60s, 65 to 70 for the Tanana Valley into Bettles and Kobuk. Otherwise, lower 30s for the Arctic coast. Highs in the 60s for the Panhandle, 60s recovering back into the mid 70s in the Susitna Valley, and lows in the 20s north, 40s and 50s south.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather Wednesday morning, a lot of IFR, Arctic coast, north slope right up to the Brooks Range. Marginal VFR into the Brooks Range there, and then south of the mountains, good VFR into the interior, although some IFR into the Selawik Valley westward across Kotzebue, northern Seward Peninsula, through the Bering Strait down covering St. Lawrence Island, then VFR St. Matthew Island, Pribilof south to the Alaska Peninsula Aleutians, all the southern Bering Sea IFR. IFR along eastern Kodiak Island, marginal VFR Shelikof Strait, and marginal VFR to start the day out, Kenai Peninsula, central northern Cook Inlet, southeast interior of the state, and then VFR for the eastern North Gulf Coast, northern half of the Panhandle, marginal VFR, central and southern southeast coastal areas. And for the afternoon, IFR now just right along the eastern Arctic coast, otherwise marginal VFR in that area, again becoming VFR over the north slope. IFR lingering there, Kotzebue Sound, into the Chukchi Sea, and then southward, Tin City, Wales, and those areas. But VFR, St. Lawrence Island, good VFR, interior Alaska, and marginal VFR working west-northwest, another surge of moisture into Yakutat and the northern Panhandle. Some IFR spreading into Prince of Wales Island. IFR right around Cape Chiniak there, Kodiak, and then the Alaska Peninsula, Aleutians, southern Bering Sea, northward to the Pribilofs, all IFR, VFR northern Bering Sea, Nunavak Island, and then for the Thursday morning time frame, northern Bering Sea, VFR, IFR central southern Bering Sea, Aleutians, but Unalaska Island, marginal VFR, and the IFR on the north shore of the Alaska Peninsula, but covering all of Bristol Bay and into just south of Dillingham. IFR near or south of Middleton Island, mostly off the coast now, with marginal VFR for the Panhandle. North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound into Passage Canal, possibly as far west as Portage. VFR interior Alaska, marginal along the coast. Afternoon forecast, marginal VFR overspreading the central eastern Copper River Basin areas, possibly as far north as Northway. And marginal VFR spreading westward into Turnagain Arm, the Kenai Peninsula, southern Cook Inlet, Manduska Valley to the Talkeetnas, VFR Cook Inlet westward to the southwest coast, including Nunavak Island, pretty good day there. IFR eastern Arctic coast, marginal for the central coast, solid IFR Aleutians and the central southern Bering Sea down to the north shore of the Alaska Peninsula. And for passes, Anatuvik starting out marginal, becoming VFR. Same forecast for Adigan. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR tomorrow. Good VFR day for rainy, windy VFR. And in Isabel, looking VFR for Wednesday. And Mentasta, VFR Wednesday. And then Tanita, also a pretty good day. VFR, either approach. Portage, VFR, either entrance, especially in the late morning through afternoon hours. Chilkoot and White, VFR, with moisture spreading north or becoming marginal VFR in the afternoon. Freezing levels, gradient there right across the Brooks Range, supporting those gusty wind conditions out of the northeast there with the cold air in the north slope of the Arctic coast. Otherwise, 8,000 feet central interior, back over the eastern Bering Sea, Pribilofs there, 6 to 8,000 over the Panhandle. And icing, light to isolated moderate rime icing, kind of pushing northward again over the southeast coast there, 8 to 16,000 feet, and some possible mixed icing of the mostly light variety. Anything moderate would be very isolated, Bristol Bay, north shore of the Alaska Peninsula, down across the Fox Islands areas. And looking at the jet stream, northeast winds about 45 knots over the Arctic coast, north slope areas with upper level low pressure, Seward Peninsula, eastern Brooks Range, slack flow over southern Alaska. Next system bringing 75 knot winds, 60 to 75 knots into the southern central southeast coast. Pretty light again, continuing over the Bering Sea. Very light wind pattern out there continues. Although at 9,000 feet, we've got east-northeast, 25 to 35 knots around that high center just west of Kuskokwim Bay, and 45-knot winds off the central and south coast of the Panhandle, 25 to 30-knot northeast on the Arctic coast, almost 25 to 40 knots at 3,000 feet, 20 to 40-knot winds off the Panhandle, translates to moderate yaw, Prince of Wales Island up to about Sitka, and the Western Brooks Range as well.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with the National Weather Service, and joining us today, two more people to talk about the augmented reality sandbox. It's Alana Valaji. She's a University of Alaska Fairbanks mechanical engineering student, helped design and work on the details to make this new type of sandbox there. Thanks for joining us, Alana. Thanks. And Courtney Breest, she's the outreach coordinator for AKwx, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. It's a program funded nationally by the National Science Foundation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Alana, tell us about how you changed and adapted this version of the augmented reality sandbox. It's a really cool tool.
So Gina approached us with 3 goals for this new version of the sandbox. Mm-hmm. They wanted it to be compact in a light system that could travel around the state. They wanted it to be child-oriented, so we designed the sandbox to have 3 different levels.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. You can have younger children. You can have high school kids. I guess I should say high school teenagers.
Sure.
And then we also designed it to be more marketable, user-friendly, so that this could be seen eventually in classrooms all over the place, all over the state.
Okay. And you had a big hand in this, but this was a team approach, right?
Definitely. It was a really good experience for myself, for George Stevens, who we'll see later.
One of our hand models today. Yeah.
For 2 other members who aren't here today, Cody Klingman and Austin Hunt. And it was just a really good learning experience all around.
Very good. And this is something that is part of your learning experience as well, so you get to check a box in your education.
Yeah,
right?
it's a requirement for seniors of mechanical engineering at University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Very good, very good. Well, it is a wonderfully inquisitive tool, fun to play with, and I hope to get my hands in the sand here in just a little bit. But it's also part of a bigger program, something that we were talking about a moment ago, AKwx, and that's what Courtney is here to tell us more about. What is AKwx and why do you need a sandbox?
Well, AKwx, as you mentioned, is a national program. We're funded nationally, but we're actually located statewide. We're at UAF, we're at UAA, we're in Southeast at UAS. And she mentioned, you know, taking the sandbox as an educational tool, and that's where I'm an outreach coordinator for the South Central test case.
Okay.
Our focus is on the Kenai watershed, and we are really interested in using these tools like the sandbox to interact with the students down there and get them interested in STEM and also communicate the research findings that we've been having throughout the state.
Okay. And one of those, as George and Eric are kind of changing the contours for us there from UAF to maybe something that resembles a little bit of something more of the Kenai watershed, which is one of your focuses for the study, right? And specifically looking at some of the changes there and how that impacts people and also the salmon.
Yes, it is all of our research is social and environmental.
Okay.
So we have social scientists working hand in hand with our environmental scientists. One of the things we're studying is Upper Russian Lake, and we have a researcher taking sediment cores from that lake. So one of the things we're going to use the sandbox to communicate is how the landscape changed over a long period of time, thousands of years, going from glacier, covered by glacier ice, to being filled with water. And then
that's what they're doing right now.
Exactly. So
live.
So they're moving the
cool.
water around. And then I think they've got some props over there, because we're also going to go a little bit more in depth and explain how the salmon got there.
Okay.
So using
and there's
these,
the salmon.
Exactly. Oh, I think there's a few more.
Yeah, we like more salmon in Alaska. More salmon.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really taking the findings from our research grant and just trying to connect with the community and translate it in a really hands-on and exciting way, so people can, you know, interact with us as much as possible.
Well, sure. That makes the learning and the science real and quite literally in your face, rather than just some boring black and white paper that you have to read about. This is something that people can understand better because it's visual and they're touching and feeling and seeing these changes, right?
Yeah, and get them engaged. And then outreach is a huge component, and working with the younger students, and actually even, I mean, working with the UAF graduate and engineering students it's a huge part of our grant, and we really enjoy it.
Oh, it is wonderfully exciting. And so, Alana, you were telling us that this is built to travel.
Right.
And this is built to do more things than version 1. Where can this type of project go in Alaska? And what can it demonstrate?
I mean, we were hoping to eventually get to villages that were harder to reach, that you couldn't necessarily move a whole fixed instrument to, right? You need something that can pack up, fit in your truck bed. I mean, one of the most attractive parts of this project is that this was going to be something that was used past our graduation point. You know, this is going to be something that lives in the state for years.
Right, right. Well, it looks like you're well on your way with that. So what are, give me another example. What else can this show us? We've talked about the Kenai River watershed. What's the coolest thing that you've played in the sand with? What's your idea?
Well, I definitely enjoy the props, but we also like kind of building up a giant mound, and if you put some water behind it, you can make a little runway, I guess, and you know, demonstrate the effects of the hydrology by just putting up a dam and letting it all pour right down. And so that could, I think you mentioned it earlier, you could even demonstrate the effects of a tsunami.
Right.
Or something along those lines.
So it's not just topography, but it's also hydrology and coastal surge mapping and some of the coastal changes that we're seeing here in Alaska, and seeing what the smaller changes in the sandbox might do to kind of a real effect of a slosh or a push of water up on the coast. Tsunami inundation mapping, or even glacial dam release, as some has been demonstrated before. So wow, that's just an impressive thing. That it seems like the possibilities are nearly endless with this, and probably even more ideas that are popping up in your head too.
Yeah, as we speak.
Very cool. All right. Well, if folks want to get more information about EPSCoR, you guys are online. You're on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. AKEPSCOR, right? EPSCoR, Alaska EPSCoR, that is. And again, you guys are funded by the National Science Foundation, so more to come from that, and a longer-term study there. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Congratulations on your hard work there. This is really fun. And for now, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and I'm going to go play in the sandbox there. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Small craft advisories for the south coast. The Panhandle on the day Wednesday for east to southeast winds 25 knots, seas 13 to 15 feet. Small craft advisories also for the southern inside waters, particularly Clarence Strait for southeast winds 25 knots. Stevens Passage, winds will be southeast at 20, and Lincoln on Glacier Bay south at 15. And for the north coast, southeast winds 15 to 20 knots with 7 to 10 foot seas. And moving on to the outlook for Thursday. Small craft advisories continue now for the central and south coast with speeds at about 25 knots from the east-southeast. Seas around 12 feet. North coast, east winds 20 knots. Lincoln on Glacier Bay, light northerly breezes to 10 knots. Stevens Passage, southeast winds 15 knots. And Clarence Strait, southeast at 20. Prince William Sound, northeast winds 15 knots, seas 2 feet. North Gulf Coast, northwest winds 10 to 15 knots with 7 foot seas. Cook Inlet, light variable wind conditions for the day Wednesday, 10 knots or less, and northwest at 10 for Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands. Winds will be north 15 knots. For Thursday, Prince William Sound, east winds at 10 knots, 2 foot seas. North Gulf Coast, easterlies at 15 to 20 knots, seas just under 10 feet. And east winds at 15 knots for the Barren Islands. Kamishak Bay, southeast 15. Cook Inlet, south to southwest winds 15 knots, seas 3 to 4 feet. Kodiak Island, for Wednesday, northeast winds 15 to 20 knots. And from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, winds will be northeast at 20 knots. Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, northeast at 15. And from Cape Sarachev to Bristol Bay, winds will be light and variable at 10 knots with seas at 2 feet. For Thursday, west winds 15 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, southwest 15 for Bristol Bay. Kodiak Island, northeast winds 15 knots, seas as high as 8 feet. And for the Fox Islands, variable to northwest winds at 10 knots with seas 2 to 3 feet. Light variable winds at 10 for the Adak, Atka, and Yamchitka Island areas from Kiska to Shimia, northeast at 10. And that light wind pattern continues for all of the Aleutians and much of the Bering Sea through Thursday. Light variable winds at 10 knots with seas running 3 to 5 feet. For the southwest coast, for the Yukon Delta coast, winds will be north of 20 knots with 6-foot seas. For the Kuskokwim Delta coast, southwest at 15, but only 1-foot seas there. Pribilof Island, St. Paul and St. George, Otter Island north at 15 with seas of 4 feet, and north winds 20 knots with 6-foot seas. For St. Matthew Island, a little brisker on the winds for St. Lawrence Island. Small craft advisories there for north winds at 30 knots, seas 6 feet. Norton Sound, looking at northerly winds at 20 knots with 4-foot seas. And for Thursday, Norton Sound, north winds at about 15 knots. Small craft advisories continue for St. Lawrence Island. A little lighter though, north sustained at 25 knots, seas at about 5 feet. And for the Yukon Delta coast, northwest winds 20 knots. Kuskokwim Delta coast west at 20. St. Paul and St. George looking at a northerly wind on Thursday at 15 knots. St. Matthew Island north at 20 knots. And up along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, east-northeast winds in the forecast tomorrow at about 15 knots. Central coast northeast at 15 knots. And small craft advisories for the western Arctic coast, northwest or northeast at 25 knots, seas 5 feet. And small craft advisories from Cape Beaufort to Wales for north to northeast winds sustained at 30 knots with 6 to 7-foot seas. And for Thursday, small craft advisories continue from Wales to Cape Beaufort, north winds at 25 knots with 5 to 6-foot seas. Western Arctic coast north at 15, and the central and west side, or central and east side, will see west to northwest winds at 10 knots. For tonight, look for a few flurries, low clouds, and fog for the eastern Arctic coast, locally into the north slope. It'll stay pretty windy from Point Ley on down to the Bering Strait coast with areas of fog. Otherwise, isolated thunderstorms over the central or south slopes of the central Brooks Range, maybe in the Kobuk-Koyukuk valleys, and also over the southern Kuskokwim Valley, western Alaska Range area. Could see a few isolated thunderstorms this evening. Otherwise, showers decrease over the Copper River Basin, drying out over the North Gulf Coast, and the band of showers moves into the southern Panhandle. For tomorrow, showers become a little more extensive over the southeast coast, and partly to mostly sunny skies over the interior with isolated scattered showers over the mountainous terrain. Another surge of moisture moves in on Thursday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.